If you like our content about training, then you'll love our programming too. Head to the notes below to grab a free week of general physical preparation. You get unlimited access to me and fresh programming every single week for less than $1 a day.
All right, we're here with another episode of the High Performance podcast, and we were just catching up on some classic High Performance Season 2 lore about Jacob never getting a question in. Joined today by our esteemed guest, Tim Champion. Mate, how's it going?
Yeah, real good. I'm happy to be back in Australia for summer.
Yeah, because I got some questions about that, because you're a little bit of Mr. Worldwide. My first question, though, is are you no, because I know the answer to the... Sorry, yeah. What is you're just a parkour athlete? Is that how you introduce yourself to people? I mean, you're fucking Tim. There's more to you than just parkour. But because I was going to say, my awareness, when I first came across your page, I had you pegged as like a outdoor gymnastics guy, a lot of like the Ninja Warrior stuff. Because I know that sort of, I mean, maybe some people don't like the way that it overlaps with the parkour community, but I'm curious to sort of get into all that sort of shit with you.
Yeah, I tell people, if someone says, what do you do? Like, I don't know. It depends if they're asking, like, what do you do for fun or what do you do for work? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
if they're saying, like, what do you do? And I'm like, I want you to think that I'm a cool guy. I'll be like, oh, I do parkour and I like have a relatively big Instagram and I make some money from that. But the truth is I also make a decent amount of my income from, I guess I just call it like obstacle course consultancy. So I work with a company that, yeah.
You sound like a corporate.
I really just, I feel like I'm making up as I go along, but they'll pay me to like give input to the obstacles that they build, and then I'll actually end up testing the obstacles. So I worked on the Ninja Warrior shows in Europe for a long time in a lot of different places, like Spain, France, Austria, Hungary,
nice.
like loads of places.
So they're like testing it. So like if we put this guy through it all, then like this is a good challenge for everyone, or just like the whole logistics around it?
No, so they'll set up the obstacles and we just need to make sure it's safe. And then mainly we're just trying to get the right difficulty, because imagine if everyone turns up, they come off the second obstacle, like you don't have a show there. Do you know what I mean? You have to make it hard enough that the decent people get through close to the end, but then everybody else just comes off.
You're muted, Gus. You're muted.
I don't know how the hell that happened. I was just about to say, so you're obviously not an insurance concern. If you die, you've signed your waiver, so it's all good. And then they've got like the backup Tim.
No, there are. I do it with a few other guys, all bunch of legends. We have a real good time doing it. Like, I mean, you're getting turned up and paid to do obstacles. Essentially, it's kind of an insane job, really. But the Ninja Warrior world's sort of petering out, or the shows in Europe are anyway. Like, I think we only work in Poland now. Obviously, there's the US show and stuff, but that's run by another company. And then there's like some politics about the different companies that don't want to work together. Like, if you work for one, you can't work for the other. It's kind of stupid, man.
Okay, because that was going to be my next question as well, like whether there was still any work with the Australian one still sort of going, because I sort of refer to Australian Ninja Warriors like it's Australian Idol for personal trainers. But we'll get more into that later. Like, because you actually fucking dominated that thing. Because is that how you got involved? You are a Ninja Warrior champion, or did you get discovered and sort of picked out just from the parkour and that sort of stuff?
I did 2 seasons of Ninja Warrior in the UK and like got to the final both times, season 1 and 2. And then after season 2, I think a friend of mine that I'd met on the show, or that got me to go on the show in the first place, was like, would you be interested in coming to test obstacles? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's how I picked up that job.
Oh, so you were just straight into it?
Because at the time, I'd studied aircraft engineering and I was an aircraft mechanic. I fucking hated that job, man. Like, I just spent 4 years learning all this stuff, and then I start the job and I'm just like, oh my god, like, is this me for the next 40 years, just fucking cleaning airplanes and taking panels off and whatnot? But I don't know if I would have had the gusto to actually quit the job. I think I'm one of those people that might have just been like, oh, this sucks, but I've just got to grind through, like this is me now. But luckily enough, luckily enough, this opportunity with the other job came up, and then I did like a couple of the Ninja Warrior jobs, and essentially got fired from the contracting job that I was doing because I wasn't working for them enough.
It's sort of interesting as well though, because if I was just sort of scrolling through your Instagram, like when you have a bit of opportunity to listen to you talk and stuff like that, it sort of comes across. But just looking at the way that you treat your body physically, I would assume that you're someone who's not really risk adverse at all. And then just this idea that you're like, oh, fuck, I don't know if I ever would have had the balls myself to sort of just like up and leave this job and pursue parkour full time. I think it's sort of valuable for other people to hear this, because I always have coaches reaching out to me and they're sort of worried about like, or moving into like self-employment, even while just sort of staying within the same field sort of thing. So, I mean, it's good to know that risk aversion, it's sort of in all of us to some extent. And a lot of us, I think, it's what I call sort of the velvet cage, because I'm sure for you, you're like, you know what? Airplane engineer, there's a lot worse gigs out there. It's like, it's still highly respectable.
I had the same thing I did gymnastics from age 9 until 21, and I feel like
you can tell
almost up until the end, I struggled like the whole way through with like just being scared of things, like trying to commit to new skills and stuff. I don't feel like I really conquered that sort of stuff until I started doing parkour.
And is that because in gymnastics, there's such a culture of like, yeah, they obviously push you a lot, but my understanding of it is that it's extraordinarily supervised. And I guess there's so many fucking parents around. It's just like, it does feel like a much safer sort of environment. Or did you feel like even like the fear side of things even limited you even within the sport of gymnastics itself? And then parkour even maybe made you a more fearless gymnast? I'm sure it did.
Yeah, I mean, there was an overlap of about 3 or 4 years when I was doing parkour and gymnastics at the same time. But like, yeah, it was literally just the fear of like, you go into the gymnastics gym and you're like, I'm gonna have to learn this new skill today, and you just shitting bricks from the moment you walk in, and then you're like, you don't really commit to it, and then you can like see that your coach is kind of like, come on, man, like you just need to actually go for this sort of thing. It's
like, I'm trying to put a kid in the fucking Olympics. Can you do it?
Yeah, it was obvious to me early on as well that I was never going to the Olympics, man. Like I was too tall and like not quite good enough. And I think perhaps a little bit of pressure from my parents to just be like, "Oh, you are really good, so you should probably just keep doing this." So yeah, I just kept going even for some years when I wasn't interested at all. But towards the end, I'm kind of glad I did though, because towards the end I like had a lot of fun with it in the final few years when I was just not really competing and just learning new stuff.
Yeah. So for people that are unaware, how did you make that transition? What was like that first breath of parkour that you had whilst doing gymnastics?
A friend of mine that I still train with now and was doing gymnastics at the same gym, I think had just seen some YouTube videos of parkour. And so in some spare time that we had, we'd just sort of fuck about in the gym and try and learn some of these moves.
Oh, in the gym.
And that just opened the door. And then we were like, we should probably go outside because people do this outside. Like that's where it's done. So then we just started venturing outside. I remember we'd just come back and like have bruised heels and bruised feet because obviously you're so used to landing on all these soft surfaces in gymnastics. We had no idea how to land on concrete. Yeah, it was horrible, man. Really painful time.
Whenever we get parkour people on the show, like, because obviously our brand's about general physical preparation and training variously. Like, I'm always asking, like, how do you get into parkour? And like, talking to people like Callum, he's like, fucking just go out there, like, and have a go. And I love that advice because I know it's true. But then hearing you talk about your exposure and transition into parkour, it just made me realize that gymnastics centers are ultimately the first indoor parkour centers. Like, and now indoor parkour.
I think a lot.
Yeah, please.
Hot take.
But no, sort of thinking about like, because again, all the things you talk about, even just like finding an obstacle that's not me just jumping off my little 1 foot gutter into the street. But then also, I don't want to just go do like a fucking backflip off my roof. Like, it's really hard to find that environment where you feel like you're doing some mad, interesting shit. But then, yeah, you're not doing something like too fucking crazy. Whereas just like being in a place that has a few more mats and things like that seems like a much better environment. Or does it just create pussies, maybe?
Oh no, there's plenty of people that I look up to in gymnastics that I think like they've got their head screwed on pretty well. I think a little bit fearless. I think perhaps they were just more driven. Like if you know that you're good, it's probably going to be a lot easier to commit to scary things because you're like, I need this because I need to get that gold medal at the Olympics. You know what I mean? But maybe if you're me, you're just like, I'm going to win my regional competition, and maybe it doesn't matter if I learn this skill. Like there's less commitment there, because I think in parkour now, when I look at myself through like the lens of maybe other people in parkour, I'm like, oh, like you're the guy that does the big swings, man, so you should probably do this big swing because that's what you're about. And maybe that just makes it a little bit easier to commit to things. I don't know. Or I feel like I have to live up to the own identity that people have made in their heads.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask you about as well, because I guess I almost pigeonholed you as like the gymnastics upper body. He's got arms like fucking legs. I mean, like, because, I mean, being honest, like your jumps are fucking insane. And I know you can hang with the elite parkour guys, but I haven't seen anyone do the upper body shit that you can do in the parkour community. Do you think it, and hearing you say that you don't think, I assume you weren't good enough to make it to the elite of the elite, let's say the Olympic level in gymnastics, more due to your natural gifts of not being a manlet. Because yeah, when I see your gymnastic ability, I'm like, oh, this is as good as gymnastic ability gets. But it's interesting just seeing how good you are, and it's like, no, there's something about it's just too much fucking mass. Can you give us some stats? How tall? What was the weight when you were at your peak in gymnastics versus how has your weight changed as you sort of go more into parkour? Probably just trying to be jacked as well for the ladies, I imagine.
Just being jacked because it fucking, I don't know, for myself, honestly. When people say I'm just doing this for myself, you just think, yeah, right, mate. But honestly, I feel like I get this thing because like I want to look sick because that's what I care about. Do you know what I mean? I actually don't care what the other guys think. But anyway, I'm 186 centimeters, which is like 6'1". At the moment, I'm 92 kilos. But when I was doing gymnastics, I think when I quit, I was about 78. So I've put on a decent bit.
Wow, 20 kg.
You have to remember that gymnasts, they're not training legs, man. They're doing some plyometrics on the sprung floor, but your legs are just, it's like fat don't fly, but legs don't fly sort of thing in gymnastics.
Yeah.
So there's just no need to train them. So obviously my upper body was way more developed when I stopped than my legs were. And then maybe because of that, I got like a little bit obsessed with trying to bring my legs up as well.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the episode. I just wanted to take a second to let you know that Angus has poured all of his knowledge on e-commerce and organic content into an ebook, which is now available. If you want to check it out, head to the show notes or the link in Angus's bio. Thanks.
I agree with everything that you're saying because it's sort of just undeniable based on what we understand with physics. And I had a conversation with some fucking surfing S&C guy on Instagram about just the dangers of general strength training for surfers and like why one of the reasons why you need to make it specific, like why you can't just train surfers generally. He was like, they'll develop too much lower limb mass. And like, I was like, for sure, like if you develop the quads of like a 700-pound squatter, I imagine that there could potentially be some negative transfer to your surfing. But I'm just like, I just don't think it's a fucking problem for people who are like beginners in the weight room getting folded by like 60 kilos. We'll talk about your surfing as well because I know that you're a bit of a core lord.
This is the thing with that argument, man. I think people, you're gonna notice if it's making like a difference, and it's not gonna happen quickly either. It's not like, oh man, you did that 6-week block and now fuck, your legs are too big and your career's over. Like, come on, man. I remember the guy that got me into strength and conditioning, but like strength training for parkour. I remember having the same. I was just like a little bit worried that I might get a bit too heavy, and like the biggest jump I've ever done, standing broad jump to be fair, but when it was at 92 kilos, which is like nearly the heaviest I've ever been. So it does feel a little bit like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really buy into it that much. Maybe it's bad for your joints if you're super heavy, but yeah, I don't know.
Do you think it also comes from people that you know, let's say they're at a pro level of their sport and they're like, I don't want to fuck up my routine and I don't want to throw this shit out of whack. And yeah, if I just add all this random S&C, am I going to fuck up? Do you think it's more across that sort of line of thinking people have?
Yeah, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Because this is my counter argument to the specific surfing S&C guys. I'm like, let's not do S&C. Like, how about fucking that? Like, has it got any fucking transfer to surfing whatsoever fucking ever? Sorry, I don't want to turn this into a fucking war against the surfing S&C industry. Yeah, I completely agree.
Like John Florence and Kelly Slater, are they strong guys? Like, are they well built or they? Because I don't know. Kelly looks like he's got a little bit of muscle on it.
No, so Kelly is a Chad, genetically gifted. He was like the big, slightly chubby bully, especially earlier in school. So he's one of those guys. He's never set foot inside the weight room, but he's got he does have a bit of a powerlifter build. He's got this like really flat, compressed front to back rib cage. He's not so much like hip shoulder separation. He's much more in his frontal plane, weight shifting side to side. But then you've got guys like the Florences where, again, since surfing, it went into overdrive when surfing got put into the Olympics, but do you know who started the S&C craze in surfing? You know Mick Fanning?
Yeah, I know Mick.
When he tore his hamstring in like 2007, that was probably the start of like, he was the first like surfing S&C guy who was like real serious about it. He's like, yeah, just lift some weights, do a little bit of extra training. It could sort of extend your career and stuff like that. So Kelly was really just about eating really healthy, like looking at food as fuel and really just doing like yoga and golf and stuff like that. He was never big on smash and tin because you know what? I reckon if Kelly threw a bar on his back, he'd build some muscle. But then, and again, I don't think it'd impact his surfing that negatively.
Yeah, fair enough.
But to that, I want to know the full sort of story. So talk to me. You said you started gymnastics when you were 9. What age was it then? And you said you discovered parkour, and there was this like sort of 4-year period where you were trying to juggle them both. And then when did lift and weights and S&C become a part of the picture? Was it when you were completely done with gymnastics? You're like, all right, let me blow up these legs, or?
That would have been, I think I started lifting seriously in 2017. You can do the math. I'm 30 now. I don't know what age that makes me.
So so over a decade of S&C experience.
Yeah, well, close to it.
And what was that like? Like, I can fix an airplane so I can put together an S&C routine, or were there some early influences there? Was there some shit training, a little bit of six-pack shortcuts? What was the go there?
I think I just continued doing like the gymnastics S&C that I'd been doing all along because it gets you pretty strong. But for the legs, I remember the first squat session I ever did with some friends. One of them was a rower, so he'd been like doing some squats. And then the other guy went to the gym sort of semi-regularly, and they put 90 kilos on the bar. I'm not sure we'd done much of a warm-up. And then we were just basically doing an AMRAP with 90 kilos, first time ever. I remember I could hardly sit on a toilet, man. Like, the DOMS was that bad. It was so bad. But I still get DOMS now with, obviously, like anyone that trains hamstrings regularly would know that. But
well, I'm the same. Like, my hamstrings, if I go like anything above like a couple of sets above an RPE 7 with like whether it's hammy curls, Nordics, Romanian deadlifts, I write off like an entire microcycle and trying to balance this thing in my head where I'm like, I know I need stronger and resilient hamstrings for sprint performance, but I'm like, I can't sprint hard when I'm training my fucking hamstring. Like, I don't know. I'm really having trouble with fitting that side of things in because I want to know as well what your structure's like.
I'm not sure where it is.
Well, but how do you manage it? Because I can understand the conundrum of, well, actually, I don't know the answer to this. I imagine you get booked to shoot content, but then there's you just living your life as a parkour athlete. And then there's you maybe filming specific content for yourself, or how the fuck does your whole week work? Or do you sit down and be like, okay, I need 5 Instagram posts this week. I better do X amount of parkour sessions that are me displaying these skills. But then I also need to train parkour, and then I also have my S&C, or is all your parkour going out performing, not purely content creation, but sort of, you know what I mean? Like, oh, there's a sick gap. Let me do some mad tricks off it. Or are you
Yeah,
structuring sessions in between that to maintain the skill, maintain the physical qualities?
it's very much I wake up, see how I feel. If I feel like doing some parkour,
Auto-regulation.
then I'll go and do some parkour. If there happens to be something cool, then I'll film it. If I feel like I'm fresh enough, maybe I'll hit a gym session. If not, I'll do it the next day, or I'll go skateboarding or go surfing. Or it's I really just sort of wake up and see how I feel. Auto regulation at its finest, basically.
That's on
It's
brand.
good when really impressive people talk about it because I'm pretty mid. So when I talk about it, people are like, yeah, but if you want to get like serious results, you need more structure. And I always want to say no, but I'm like, I can't appeal to my own authority. Whereas like for
The
you, it's like,
periods, yeah, the periods of time where I've like blown up the most in the gym is when I'm going the most regularly. But I don't think anyone's going to argue that. Like, if you're consistent over a long period of time, that's when you make the gains. But yeah, in the back of my head, I'm like, I guess maybe I do have a bit of a program because I'll be like, I should probably get in the gym another time this week because I've only been once, and then I've only surfed once this week, so maybe I should do some more zone two or something. I'll have like that running in my head, but it's not very strict, man. If it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. Or if I don't feel like doing some parkour, then I won't go.
but that's exactly what I think the perfect amount of periodization is for like 90, maybe even up to like 99% of people. Because I think the straw man, when you start to reject a lot of the rigidity and the forward planning of traditional periodization theory, people want to say it's like, oh, I just go in and do fucking whatever. It's like it's a completely new workout every single time. But it's like, no, there is some semblance of a plan and just an awareness of maybe what the stimulus is and what the total net amount of work that you want to get through in a week is. Sort of more
Yeah,
along
but
those guys.
maybe it helps to have gone through a few programs or a few years of training first to understand like what it takes to get better at something or what it takes to maintain something. Like you said, I'm probably 8 to 10 years deep, so I feel like I've worked out the basics now, and I can just sort of fly by the seat of my pants.
Now that's a good point because I think about someone who's maybe, say they're just a parkour beast or something like that, or
Yeah,
they're just a surfer, and then they're listening to this, they're like, you know what? I might see if S&C can help me with my sport, or just because they want to just get into a little bit more fun training. I'm like, yeah, for someone like that, I think, it's sort of like learn to play classical before you go and try to play jazz. I think you need to
yeah,
learn a lot of the traditions. So then it's like you're breaking it with a reason, not just be like for the fuck of it.
yeah. It's definitely easy for me to think like, oh, everyone in the gym knows what they're doing, and then you get into a commercial gym, and you're just like, oh my god, man, like what's going on? Because I did a personal training course, and I was just like, I don't feel like I really have any authority to teach anything because I don't know, I just what's it called? Like just project my own knowledge and whatnot onto other people. And then I get into the gym, I'm just like, oh, like maybe these people actually don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest mistake reasonable people make when they engage with fitness. They're like, I'll listen to the experts. But then you just have this moment after listening to a few fitness experts. You're like, oh, is
Yeah.
this industry just like all the dumb cunts who failed at school? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, for the most part, there's some utterly brilliant people in here, but I'm always not impressed because again, it makes a lot of sense to me when just intelligent people who aren't a personal trainer or S&C coach by trade, they look at it and they just sort of apply the principles that they understand just from fucking
Yeah.
anything in life. Well, you have had exposure, like you said, to pretty heavily structured and planned out training. So I guess all that experience does help sort of, you weren't completely new to physical culture.
Yeah. In the beginning of my lifting sort of journey as well, it was like heavily periodized. We used to have like a structure phase, strength phase, and then a speed phase. This was for parkour. I remember in the
Oh,
speed phase, I was just like, oh, but aren't I just gonna like, if it's 6 weeks long, I'm just gonna sort of lose my strength gains. And nowadays, I'm like, I'm totally on board with what you guys are doing. I'm just like, and Will Rattel and what's his name, Blaine McConnell. Just do it all, man. Like you'll go a little bit slowly in each aspect, but at least one of them's just not going to drop off the face of the earth for a minute.
Yeah, none of them die. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just seems like such a good hedge. It's just like I value all of these qualities and I'm willing to undulate them, and I can totally see the justification for emphasizing one or the other. But no one has ever explained to me a good justification for removing any quality from the program year round, or what they'll bring up is a lack of space. But my response to them is they usually don't understand what the minimum effective dose is.
Yeah. I definitely have a bit of a tough relationship with minimum effective dose. Like I'll do a couple sets and be like, it's probably enough. And I'll be like, but man, maybe a couple more and you'll just grow a little bit more, or you'll get a little bit stronger. You know, I'm the guy in the gym that will get carried away and I'm just like, oh, hit a few sets of that. I'll literally get excited when I see a machine. I'll just be like, maybe I'll just get some of that in as well. Do you know what I mean?
That seems like a really parkour-oriented attitude to the gym. I mean, it's the same way you just walking around, and I imagine you see a gap, you're like, I'm just going to run this thing until I get it right.
Yeah. It's crazy how much that's shifted as well, because I was just like, used to be like, stick to the program. And nowadays I go in, I'm just like, if I find a new machine, I'll just hit a few sets on it, because I'll be like, I've never tried this thing before. What's it training? Legs. I'm doing legs. I want stronger legs. That'll do. Do you know what I mean?
If you want access to a community of like-minded coaches, head to the notes below and join our free school community. I'm in there every week doing Q&As, and there's plenty of educational content on the way as well.
To cap off this section, I'm really curious to know your gym lifts. What's your max squat, max deadlift, max bench? I also want to know your snatch and your clean and jerk. And then I also want to know weighted pull-up and dip numbers if you have them.
Yeah. So squat, I've done a 190 low bar to parallel, and I've done a 180 Astagrass high bar. Deadlift, I've done 220 conventional. I haven't done sumo in a long time. And then
that's bullshit with your wingspan. No way that's your max.
I've always had a bit of I think it's my lower back, man. I think my lower back's just a bit fucking weak. And so I only train stiff leg deadlifts now, because I was just like, fuck this, I need a stronger lower back. So I just do. Anyway, bench.
Sorry, that wasn't a diss.
No, it's all right. I diss myself for it all the time. I'm just like, you've got a poverty deadlift, man, for your size. I don't train it all that much.
It's compared to every other thing we see you do.
Yeah. And then bench, I've done 167.5
there we go.
Kilos. Snatch, I only do power snatch and power cleans because I'm fucking terrible at the front rack. And I don't know, I just never bothered to do the full snatches. I think I just haven't worked it out that much yet or whatever, but I've power snatched, or maybe slightly below a power, but 115. And then the power clean, power clean and jerk, I've done 125.
Fuck, the power snatch is insane. The power clean's good too. Now I want to know some weighted pull-up, if you have it, or like a weighted dip. You ever gone for a big one of those?
Weighted pull-up I've done. It was a bit of a nasty rep, like with a little bit of knee drive at the end to get that last section, but I've done 80 kilos on that. And then weighted dip, I've done 110, like additional weight, 110 kilos. But I did a set of 4 with 100 not that long ago. I just never tested my max, so I reckon like we're in the 120, 125 range even though.
Fucking hell, especially when you add in the body weight there. That's insane.
Yeah, dipping's always been, that's been like the one thing where I've been like, I'm actually feel real talented at this, like a weighted dip, because even without training it, I just feel like I could push crazy weights. Like I remember they had a thing in gymnastics where on the parallel bars, you do one dip and then you take a step, and then you do 2 dips and then you take a step. And I went up to like 12, which when you add it all up is like 88 dips or something in a set. So I've obviously always been strong at that. Strong triceps, but weak as piss shoulders. Like all my overhead stuff in gymnastics, I just really was not that strong at. So I feel like I've got a little bit of a complex about getting that strong now. Like I started just overhead pressing, and that blew up my bench as well. So if anyone's trying to increase their bench, maybe your shoulders are just weak.
Probably need that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a program with Matt Watson, friend of the show. and you do plyo preparation in that as well as, you know,
Yeah.
parkour specific. For parkour people at home that probably be like, well, I'm already jumping heaps and you know, jumping over this and that. What do you see the value in your own opinion of training plyometrics outside of jumping off of buildings and stuff?
I think the value is in the fact that you're going to be doing a bunch of extensive plyos. Like when we go out and do parkour, we're like, find maybe the biggest jump we can do, fail it 5 or 6 times, maybe make it 1 time, and then you're like, cool, that was a good session. I'll go home now. And you're not getting consistent exposure to the stimulus. Yeah, you're doing jumps, but like, yeah, you've done 5 maximal jumps maybe, or you've done like a little bit of extensive this session, and then you don't do that for 2 weeks. I think it's really just giving parkour people like just a little bit of structure to their jumps, and through that, like, yeah, they don't have to run our plyo program, but like, just if you just consistently do some plyos, you're gonna get benefit from it, because the way that we train is not conducive to like slowly ramping up some volume or slowly increasing intensity sort of thing.
It's such a sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, and off the back of that as well, what were some of your first exposures to plyos, and how did you find it benefiting your parkour work?
I got exposed to Matt Watson through Callum Powell, which I think has also been on the show.
Hell yeah.
And that's how I ended up finding out about Angus as well, as through Callum Powell, like reposting something on his story or something like that. But
Yeah, I need to send him a GPP shirt. He's done a lot for me, Callum.
And maybe a couple of years ago, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure when it was popping off, but sort of when Matt was blowing up a little bit, I started following his content, and I remember just thinking like, man, I should probably do some plyos in my training, since the whole fucking concept of the sport is mostly jumping. And it's crazy. It's crazy now to think that I went nearly 10 years like without dedicated plyometrics. Like I was like, oh yeah, I need to lift the weights and get strong and stuff. And it's almost like the reverse of what maybe track and field athletes do, where they're like, all right, like we just spam the plyometrics and a little bit afraid of lifting weights and stuff. Maybe I was the absolute opposite. Like I was just like, I just need to keep pushing my squat numbers and I'll be able to jump further. And so I started just following some of the basic stuff. And yeah, I just saw like immediate improvement in my parkour, and I was like, man, I think a lot of people would benefit from this. And like, obviously, it's you don't need to. I don't think it requires that much explanation that if you train a lot of jumping and plyometrics, you're going to get better at parkour. Like, come on.
It is sort of interesting though as well, just like I was about to say, the arbitrary distinction between jumping and plyos. I mean, it's a pretty specific distinction. What is it? It's like a quarter of a second on the ground.
The ground contact time, yeah.
To make something that's truly plyometric. But because I always sort of assumed, yeah, that anyone who's into their parkour or anyone who's trying to dunk a basketball would be doing a lot of plyos in their training. But I'm like, well, no, like it's a different thing to jumping. Or what is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got jumping, and I guess plyo sort of within that, isn't? No, not quite like that. Anyway, fucking.
I think there's just so much carryover that even if the ground contact time's longer in parkour, like I'm just speaking from personal experience and other people that have done it as well, it helps.
Just building that like stiffness sort of quality.
Yeah, I think so. Like we do genuine plyos, but like between walls and on and off of things. You know, when you'll do like one running jump to a wall and then immediately need to plyo to a wall that's like 13 feet away. The contact time can be pretty short on that.
Well, you've actually been in the lab with created a bit of a lab setting with Matt Watson and the force decks and things like that. Was there anything sort of surprising that came out of there? You're like, oh, I'm just producing a fuck ton of force. No surprises there.
Unfortunately, like I went and filmed all that stuff with Matt after I'd had maybe 3 months off of jumping because my left knee had like blown up a bit. I had an MRI and had some like chondrial delamination, which is where your cartilage just sort of like lifts off of the bone. And the guy I saw was just like, yeah, you should probably just not do anything too intense on that for a few months. So I was meant to see Matt earlier, but then I took that 3 months off, and then I saw him, and then I did all these tests, and I was like, a little bit bummed on my numbers, man. Like I think my vert was like, I want to say 30 inches, but I don't know if that's, or maybe when I did the backflip, it was 31 or something. And I know that's better than your 15 or whatever, whatever you want. I was a little bit bummed on it, but I found that on the force plate, on the proper force plate, like the real expensive one, Matt was saying that all the people that were running it were saying like, I'm just slow out of the bottom. So I get down quick and I can get up relatively fast, but the time it takes for me to turn around that at the bottom is is slow compared to maybe your better athletes.
And would you say like you probably would be a more muscular jumper than like someone like, I'm trying to think of I was almost going to, do you follow the dunking community? Do you follow like Isaiah Riviera and all those sort of people, or?
No, I do.
Because I was almost going to say he's a bit more tendon based, but then the guy can fucking power clean 150 kilos. Well, I guess you use your tendons for that.
I don't understand some of these when someone that's the same fucking body weight as me and they can power clean like 180 kilos or something. The math just doesn't work in my head, man. I don't understand it. It literally doesn't make any sense. I don't care how efficient you are. Why can you lift like 60 kilos more than I can in this lift?
No, because that's because it's the same when I watch you swing around off shit.
Yeah.
No, because that's it. Like the level of efficiency that you can get with a clean, because like when you do that 125 kilo power clean, I'm not sure how high you're pulling that. I mean, you would almost need to pull a power clean to about nipple height. But if you are maximally efficient in a clean, you only need to get the bar to your belly button.
Jesus, okay.
So like it really is golf with a barbell. It's like if you are milking out absolutely everything from and again, I guess that's where you sort of start to see those arguments for people where they get too caught up in the technique side of weightlifting. It's like, well, are we using it as a sport where we're trying to be perfect, or are we just trying to like horsecock a barbell and get a physical stimulus? Because it's almost two separate conversations. Like you only need, I would say, like, 50% competency. Like once you can power clean 40, 50% of your deadlift, I think then you can get like a nice physical stimulus out of the Olympic lifts. Anything beyond that, it is sort of like you indulging in the sport of weightlifting. But just sort of segueing out of that, I want to learn more about how do I get my arms working like legs outside of just being able to like dip 100 kilos, because and this is like a bit of a controversial topic, especially if you're friends with Matt Watson. I mean, because like a lot of people, and I agree with Matt Watson, there's no real upper body plyo training because obviously we don't have an Achilles tendon in our upper arm and stuff like that. But I look at like upper body plyos as things like the cartwheels and the flips and the vaults and stuff like that, in terms of like really high quality speed and power training for the upper body. Do you have any sort of insight into developing those qualities and things that people could play around with? Or is it just like go do 10 years of gymnastics? That's the way to get it.
Yeah, I've never even thought about upper body plyometrics as like the handsprings and the backflips and the gymnastic stuff. Honestly, probably my upper body is potentially the way it is just because I've been doing gymnastics since I was 9. And when I think I bench pressed 100 kilos when I was like 16, which is no crazy feat, but it's not like I was even benching at the time. Yeah. I think, find what you're gifted at and just run with it, basically. It's like the laches in parkour. The laches are like all the swings that I do when you like cast up the handstand and then fucking swing and land on something far away. I just noticed as soon as I unlocked like the the cast up to the handstand, I noticed that I could just go distances that other people would struggle with their entire life without really trying that hard. And I was just like, okay, maybe for one of the first times in my life, I was like, shit, like I think this is my special ability, you know? And I just capitalized on it. I was just like, okay, I'll just really like work the shit out of this, and it's fun.
We value your input here at the High Performance Podcast. Head to the SpeakPipe link in the notes below and you can leave us a voicemail where you can ask us a question or leave us a topic for us to explore on the show. We hope to hear from you soon.
Have you ever heard people talk about Yoel Romero when like a surgeon cuts him open or something like that, and they're like, man, just his connective tissue and his bone structure is just so different to everyone else. I imagine if they cut you open, your shoulder socket would actually just look like a hip socket.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still a little bit at loss of why I can swing further than a lot of other people in parkour. I don't really get it. I was like maybe I've got a decent bit of core strength, but there's no like, I don't know. My upper body's a good bit stronger than most other people, so maybe that makes a difference as well. But I'm not really sure.
Do you think a lot of it is in the grip as well? Because like, yeah, I imagine like your shoulder has to be so resilient to handle hurtling through the air. I don't know what kind of meterage that you're covering, but with a 90-kilo frame, and then you just grab onto a set of bars or something like the grip strength is fucking insane to stop yourself from just continuing to fly past it.
Yeah, it must be. I remember I got like a little bit into those Captain A Crush gripper things, and I closed. I've closed a number 3 with my right hand.
Do you hook grip your snatches, or do you just double overhand?
I used to double overhand, but I hook grip them. Yeah. I can double overhand like a 200-kilo deadlift.
I believe that. I fucking believe that. I've got to go. Fuck.
So I think the grip strength has something to do with it for sure. Because you just like it allows you to express more force, even though I think it's all subconscious. Like, 'cause if you were trying to just snatch double overhand instead of hook gripping, I feel like maybe it wouldn't feel like the bar's going to come out your hands, but you naturally put less into it because your brain's done all the math. It's like, no, we can't pull it that fast, man. It's just going to pop out.
That's literally what Olympic weightlifting coaches will use as like one of their key technique builders for a lot of weightlifters is no hook grip snatches and cleans. Precisely what you said. It just forces you to dial things back and just really consider your technique a little bit more. But then in terms of trying to draw physical qualities out of the lifts, unless you got Tim Champion grip strength, it's not going to do much for you.
It feels different when I hook grip though. It feels nice. And I've got decently big hands, so I can like get a couple fingers over my thumb.
It's all in the thumb size. Like you have a look at some people's fucking hand size and you're like, fuck, good luck with the snatch hook grip. It is one of those things where it's like, I mean, I guess some people could just go use the women's bar, which is probably a bit more acceptable in this day and
like,
age.
do you know Hayden Wiseman?
Hayden Wiseman? What's he about?
He does some content with Clarence Kennedy sometimes. He's a power lifter from the UK.
Okay, yeah, I definitely know who Clarence is. Yeah,
he's got tiny, like, stubby hands, and if he's strapped up, he can sumo deadlift like 330 kilos. But when he's just hook gripping or trying mixed grip, he can he really struggles to get over the 300-kilo mark.
Well, this is the thing, and this is why a lot of people say it's like true super heavyweight weightlifters are born and you can't make them, because a lot of guys where you're like, oh, he's pretty big, he could probably make it as a super. What ends up fucking him over is when their body weight really explodes. If you don't have really long fingers, your hand starts to get chubby and it messes with their snatch hook grip. So a lot of those super heavyweights, it's like they're strapped up snatches so much heavier than what they're actually able to do in competition.
Oh, true. I'd love to see some of those.
Continuously betrayed by too fat to get into a good starting position, and they can barely shove a thumb in there. So it's like clean and jerk just keeps going up, and it's like how much weight am I willing to sacrifice on my top end snatch? Because you follow like Lasher.
Yeah.
6'6", 180 kilos. It's like there's your fucking super heavyweight. Like he has no trouble with the fat fingers and stuff like that.
I'm so confused. I'm not confused, but like I don't want to believe that excess of fat is required to get the like maximum muscle mass or whatever you need. I know you get a little bit like in the bottom position, you probably have like a little bit of elasticity because your fucking guts resting on your legs and stuff.
Yeah.
But it just
I-
seems
I
like,
think
it
it's
seems like they've
respecting the
pushed
tummy.
it too far. Surely, like, surely you don't need
Oh,
to be
yeah.
fat to maximize your gains.
I think it's like this culture of like the super heavyweights are the kings of the sport. So I think it's a little bit of like living like a don, and like they do get treated a little bit more like royalty. But one thing I will say, I've always been jealous of people with a belly when it comes to squatting. Because I know we talk a lot about like, you know, if you really want to squat deep, you don't want to get pulled forward. And a belly does pull you forward in a lot of ways, but it also gives you this like phenomenal counterbalance to sort of like sit back against.
Yeah.
And then when the belly pushes into your quads and stuff like that in the bottom position, it just creates all this like really wonderful compression for them. So
Yeah.
I think that there's something to it, but then I also wonder if they run into a lot of like sleep issues and just like negative secondary health benefits. Because like Hossein Razazadeh towards the end of his career, other than when he was putting 260 kilos above his head, was almost indistinguishable from the people you see in like those little rascal scooters in Las Vegas.
Yeah. I need to sort it out, man. Who am I to say that? Like, I don't know fucking anything about Olympic weightlifting, really. So, and Lash is the one breaking world records. So, you know, I think he
Breaks
knows
my heart when you say that because you snatch more than me. But yeah, that is just the thing when you interviewing sick athletes on the show.
What's your snatch? 110.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that your absolute peak, or was that recently?
No, that was pre-COVID. That was like 2020. So my strength was absolutely peaking pre-COVID. And then when gym shut down, I spat the dummy and basically quit weights for 2 years and just went surfing. But then I noticed that I was getting really angry about in shape people and stuff. I was like, I've got to get back into training. I thought I was ready to go on my like be out of shape and just be like a coaching fucking legend. I'm like, I'm in my 20s. I am so not fucking there yet.
Yeah.
No, my most impressive. So I pulled under 150 clean off blocks. Didn't fucking stand it up because I'm a pussy. So I clean and jerked 140. Max snatch is 110. I'll get back past it at a certain point. It's just, I feel like the quickest path for me to get back to those numbers is to put on a bunch of weight. And I have the same conundrum you have about your parkour with me running a sub 1200. Like, I don't think weight gain will inhibit me. But then I just don't know if it's helping me. And originally I had this idea that I wasn't muscular enough to reach my sprinting potential.
Yeah.
But I get too caught up looking at guys like Kashane Thompson, just all the fucking jacked sprinters because that's what's sexy at the end of the day. But then you've also got sprinters like Andre de Grasse, who's like 67 kilos dripping wet. So I'm like,
Yeah.
But then I'm not Andre de Grasse or Kashane Thompson, so it's like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think when people talk about getting too big for their sport, I think I started to maybe hit the upper limit of that a year or so ago. When I was working in Dubai, I wasn't training much. The only free time that I had was like basically spent in the hotel gym. So I was just pumping iron almost every evening, man, and like eating, they pay for all your food, so we'd just be going for like Indian meals and whatever, just eating heinous amounts of calories. I got up to maybe 93, 94 kilos. And I remember like I was trying to put sunscreen on my neck and I couldn't my mobility was going from my shoulders. Yeah, I couldn't front rack in the beginning. And I was just like, when I was struggling to put sunscreen on my neck, I was like, oh, maybe this is it, man. Maybe this is too big for what I'm trying to do.
You're like one of those myostatin inhibited cows.
Yeah.
If you were to have like an ideal parkour physique, is it you trying to gain? Are you trying to lose? Like what dietary are you trying to hit? Are you trying to maintain throughout the whole time? If you're a parkour,
Nah, when it comes around to like competition season, and I don't know if I've got any sort of justifications for this, but I always feel like lighter is going to be better. Like for instance, you don't need to bench 160 kilos to be good at this parkour comp. So I'm like, okay, I should probably just let a bit of weight come off my chest for a couple of months. And then, so the thing is, I'm definitely carrying dead weight. And I don't know if people think that I just train like specific. Like I'm all about parkour because I'm not. I just fucking love lifting weights, man, and I just train. I just train and sort of hope it doesn't get too much in the way now because it's just another passion of mine that I like doing. But when it comes around to training, I want to be like, I'd like to compete around 88 kilos, I think. And I'm about 92 now, so like lose a bit of weight, definitely. But
that's not too crazy. Yeah.
nah.
And that's probably not going to deter you from your lifting goals, losing that just 4 kilos. But you are quite lean, so who knows what that will do. But yeah, that's
yeah, I think the guys that do, I think just your general sort of athletic but semi-skinny looking guy is probably the perfect parkour physique. I say that, and I've won 5 in a row of this parkour competition I've been doing. So obviously this physique is all right as well, but parkour's small enough that we're not really worked out what the cream of the crop is yet for the particular.
I was gonna say, you guys stitch everyone up. Everyone's looking at you, being like, "Oh, I've got to show up looking like fucking Tim next year," and everyone's performance is gonna tank. Be like blowing out shoulders in the gym.
I do feel fortunate to have got into a sport that's so young that you can just if you want to go to the gym and get massive and still do really well in the sport, then that's fine, man. But like it's not got so competitive that I need to really think super hard about that.
But then I also think like it's become so trendy to use parkour athletes to advertise your products and stuff like that. I'm sure when that side of things come around, having that 160 kilo bench is very good for business.
Yeah, yeah. I want 180, man. That's the dream. I want 4 plates.
Ooh,
but I think I'm gonna have to go up to like maybe 100 kilo body weight or something if it's to realistically be able to do it.
You know what will make you bench 180?
Widen the grip.
Some sort of lower limb injury.
Touch wood.
Touch wood. Don't wish it on anyone. But the moment you are out of action, and I hope it doesn't happen to you, but like if by happenstance something just took you out of like aggressive lower body jump in, like took away some of that training focus, I just think it would happen.
Yeah, it took me so long to add 2.5 kilos to that 165 that I had that I was just like, shit, man, this is going to take a while. Like, I feel like, obviously, the further you venture away from, like, your baseline, the fucking harder it gets to make those little gains. And so when I look at the 180, I'm like, this is going to take some serious fucking work if I ever want to get there. Yeah, I'm all there for it. I love the process.
In terms of your parkour progression, are there any sort of tricks where you're like, I'm sort of working towards this, or you feel like you're pretty set on your bag of tricks and it's just like, nah, I just got to fly through the air longer? Or is there any like particular gaps and locations that you've got sort of on your list to cross off? Or is it sort of one of those things where nothing really stays on the list for that long? Because it's like, as soon as you see something, you're like, let me fucking cross that off.
Yeah, it's worldwide enough that like, I just kind of have to wait till I end up in that place to go and try the thing that I want to try. There's this spot in Hawaii of all places that's like this perfect line of bars, like one after the other, maybe 8 or 9 feet apart. And I want to do like the backflip regrabs between all of them, and I want to do like the lashy bounce between all of them. I want to do a few challenges there, but there's nothing on my mind at the moment where I'm like, I'm really working towards this goal. It's more, parkour for me is so much about just like, I want to just find the shit that scares me and then work up to doing it, essentially. Like I definitely enjoy the physical side of it, but the mental side of things, I think, is where I really sort of draw most of my satisfaction from. It's just maybe because I struggled with the fear aspect of gymnastics so much. I feel like when I conquer the fear in parkour, I feel like I'm doing myself a solid. I don't know. I just love being super afraid of something and then getting over that. And you can literally train that as a skill as well. Like you'll sort of carry momentum. Like the more scary shit you do, the better you get. Like leading up to my competition that I do in August each year, I'll start doing sort of things that scare me a little bit, and then I'll just ramp it up and ramp it up and ramp it up, so that by the time I get to the competition and they like reveal the challenges that we have to do, in my head I'm like, oh, I just need to. I'm not even worried about being afraid of them, because sometimes that's half the battle.
Sort of like you already had your most fearful experience in training. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Is that what you're trying to do? Yeah.
Yeah, you're just trying to desensitize yourself somewhat to being afraid of stuff, and to do that you have to go through a lot of mental barriers.
Progressively overload fear.
That's my curiosity, because I have some goals in surfing. Like, I talk about, surfing's a big part of my identity. And a part of that is like, you want to be a core lord. Like, you don't want to invite your mates to like watch you surf, and then you rock up and you're like, oh, fuck, the waves are kind of big today.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll go out in some big waves, but there's a few Australian slabs that are on my bucket list.
Oh, what do you want to surf? The box?
I want to go. No, I don't have. So a lot of the good left slabs, I don't want to go back to WA. It's too sharky. It's too fucking gnarly. It's not a fun surf trip when you go to WA. You just fucking stressed out the whole time.
Are you goofy for it?
Yeah. So on the East Coast, we've got Shark Island. I don't want to do Cape Solent or anything like that. There's the Verge in Wollongong, which is, you sort of need a jet ski to sort of go out there. But what I was curious about is, do you think it's like a general thing? I know for sure there's a specificity to it, like, right? But it's so hard for me to get graded exposure to the conditions that I want to go out in, because like, you can't predict the surf. I can't book in like a medium session and then a more aggressive session. It's like when the day comes, the day fucking comes. But I'm like, do you think that there's something to be said for, because I have a fear of heights. Okay. And because is it as well though, because like, do you think it's fear specific in terms of the heights, or is it just this general desensitizing yourself to risk-taking behavior?
I think the unfortunate answer is that it's pretty specific, because I can excel in that area of my life, and then maybe if I had to do some like public speaking or something, I would just be bricking it, absolutely bricking it. I don't think it carries over between things, unfortunately. It felt like if it meant that I could talk to women more easily or something, that would be amazing. It doesn't really work like that.
How about for your lifting? Like, did you come into like the S&C scene like just ripping 1RMs here and there because you're like, fuck, I've just gone through everything?
The parkour attitude, yeah.
No, I think I was fortunate enough that I came in with that decent bit of structure from, like, I got introduced to it from a friend of mine, Tom Taylor, and then I worked with him for 2 or 3 years first, where he was doing like basic periodization type stuff.
A bit less loose.
But the surfing's such a, I want to say it's a fucking difficult sport to get good at. Like when I describe it to some people, like, you imagine if I gave you a badminton racket and a shuttlecock and said, okay, you get to play for 30 seconds. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to get much better. And if you go surfing and you're trying to stand up, and you might get 30 seconds to a minute of wave riding time if you're having a good session in the beginning. So like you're just going to progress so fucking slowly, man.
I
literally am.
Okay, but have you been in wave pools yet? Because obviously that is your opportunity, even though it's fucking expensive per second of riding. You can literally bank 14 waves, 20 seconds. Like 3 minutes of surfing. That's the crazy thing. Even when you're getting the maximum amount possible, it's like 7 minutes of actual surfing in a fucking hour. Whereas like with parkour, and parkour is phenomenally challenging in its own way, but like the pole isn't running away from you. It's like it's not going to randomly appear at 2 p.m. on a fucking Tuesday. Have you had exposure to the wave pool yet? Or any really
I've
long
had
point
maybe
breaks?
three or four sessions in a wave pool. Actually, the last one I had, I went to take off on a wave, missed it, went to catch the white water of the next one, but it just flipped me onto my face. Like maybe I was a bit too far forward on the board, and it just grinded my fucking nose against the bottom.
Fuck.
I've got a clip that my ex-girlfriend took of me where I look at her and I say something like, is my nose cut or something? As in, like, I wanted to know if, like, was it a decent gouge? Because I was, like, aware that it was bleeding. And she was like, it's bleeding everywhere. And in the thing I go, yeah, I know, but how bad is it? Like,
Yeah, it's like, do I need to get out of the pool? Are other people at
literally.
risk it?
Yeah. So I think I've got a voucher to use at the Urban Surf in Melbourne. Go back and do another session. But yeah, you're right. But fuck me, it is expensive.
So all your surfing is sort of done around like Great Ocean Road or Mornington Peninsula?
Usually,
is that sort
yeah,
of where I was
Mornington
thinking of?
Peninsula and Phillip Island. Go to Phillip Island a lot.
Phillip Island. Hell yeah.
So
Not that
Phillip
I
Island's
want to
also on my no-go
shout out the
list.
rates too much because everyone's just going to fucking turn up, but it's already relatively busy.
No. Okay, so this is perfect time for me to bring this up. So the reason why no one should ever surf at Phillip Island, other than you and the locals that enjoy those waves, is that's where they landed the world's... sorry, not just the biggest tiger shark ever caught, the biggest shark ever caught on a fishing line. And actually, Jacob, can you pull it up, the photo of it? Because just go tiger shark Phillip Island. It's like... Yeah, once we flash this thing on the screen,
I always tell myself, I'm always telling myself, like, oh, come on, man, I'm so much more likely to die driving to Phillip Island than I am to get eaten by a shark while I'm surfing. But people keep bringing the shark thing up, and I'm just wondering, wondering, when's my first encounter going to happen? Because often I'll go with my friend who has a full-time job, so we'll surf after work. So, like, we'll be getting in the water at dusk. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, man, I don't know what to tell you because can we get the full... There's a shot where they've just got it on a fucking crane, though, and the thing's... Yeah, there it is.
No, man.
Fucking hell.
That one at the top left now, Jake.
Oh, my
Somebody caught that on a line.
Someone caught that on a fucking fishing rod.
There's no rod that is strong enough to hold that, surely.
Some fucking core lord, like, just hanging off the rocks at Phillip Island, be like, watch this, boys. I'm going to fucking pull a monster out of the ocean.
Oh, my God, man.
No, I don't... Look, the thing is, because people always quote the car crash statistics, but I'm like, are they adjusted for how much time I spend in the water compared to the average person? Like, if we put everyone who drove in the ocean... I don't know. I don't know. It just fucks with me so much. And because
So it's something you genuinely think about when you're surfing.
I'm a paranoid person though, so I don't know if I want to like inflict this on you because again, like, and my coping mechanism is I struggle in situations where there's a lack of control. So one of the ways I develop a sense of control is I entertain absolute worst case scenario, no matter what situation I'm in. Because then if worst case scenario happens, I'm like, oh, it's all right. Like I can deal with this. It hasn't hasn't come up that I haven't anticipated. So when I was surfing Crescent Head and I saw a great white for the first, so I was riding a wave this way and I saw this fin that was like from my elbow to the tip of my finger. And because you see dolphins when you surf, right?
Yeah.
And there's the bob.
Yeah,
there was such a distinctive lack of fucking bob. No. And it wasn't even that my body registered shark. It was like a prey response. It was like going, like that. We don't like that thing. And then there was like 60 other blokes out in the surf. And I'm like, oh, I'm the first person who's seen this thing. Because it was lucky. It was very close to me. It was probably like, I want to say less than 3 meters away. But I was moving this way and it was moving past me on the other side of the wave. So it was like the perfect. But then, I had to scream shark. Because when was the last time you screamed in public? Like, shark, shark.
We're just instilling fear into Tim's mind this whole episode.
I'm not sure I could take that step to actually scream shark. Like I told a funny story on one of the Stora podcasts where I was like, I used to be an aircraft engineer and I was on a flight and I look out the window and I see that one of the panels is like not fastened down properly. And but I was just also like, if I say something here, everyone's gonna have to get off the plane. They're gonna like sort this. It's gonna fuck up everything. And I was just like, I don't want to. Well, that's the thing. I think in my head I was like, I'll probably be all right. But the part of me that was encouraging me to think that was the part that just doesn't want to say anything to someone. Do you know what I mean?
You just didn't want to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that kid thing where you're worried if you point something out, the adults will get mad at you. You're like, no, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, when I
Imagine
was
how many
younger, I
times that
fucking
happens.
dealt with some. I don't want to call it like crippling. I don't know if it's anxiety or what, but like just the fear of talking to people that I don't know. Like I remember I stopped outside. Do you know what a pasty is? It's like something we have in Cornwall and Devon, like the meat pie, basically,
Yeah.
but a different
Yeah,
size.
Yeah, I was like the food, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So my family friend was like, "Oh, do you want to get a pasty?" So he stops outside this place, and then I just see that there's two girls stood either side of the doorway to the pasty place, and I was just like, I don't want one anymore, man.
I'm not angry.
So
Yeah.
you get girls like you just have to be swinging around the pole and have them approach you.
I literally. That's not how it worked recently. But I met a girl recently, and we were on a walk, and we went past a fitness park, and I was like, "Do you want to see some giants?" And I just went around the bar a few times.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Oh,
That'll get him.
fuck, that's funny. I feel like the good thing
Hopefully,
with
I've improved in many ways, so we're not too afraid to walk into shops anymore.
it's like they actually notice that, whereas like especially with my last girlfriend, like she really liked the idea of dating a surfer boy, and I was like, I'm not just a surfer boy. I was like, I rip pretty hard. I was like, watch me surf. And I remember like coming in the first few times, I didn't surf that good. I was like, oh, that wasn't actually me. My pick, don't worry about it. She was like, I can't tell the difference between you and any other cunt out there. I just think it's hot dating a surfer. I was like, fuck's sake. Like, I was like, no, babe, I rip. Like, I need you to understand. I actually rip. I'm good at this. Whereas your shit, it's just undeniable. Like, it's so visually distinctively different to me swinging around a bar.
Oh, but I would say.
Oh, you reckon I could sell it to her? It's like, no, babe, 6-time Ninja Warrior champion. Look into it.
No, I think anyone that's like real deep in a sport that meets someone that has no idea, you could do something pretty simple to impress them. Like the me swinging around a bar is actually not difficult at all. That's why I went and did it.
Oh, you're going and you just show like 20%.
I'm just showing what I know is gonna be like, oh whoa, do you know what I mean? Because maybe I could do something really difficult that they just see absolutely zero excitement or value in. But when you see someone swing around a bar, like when people realize this about like Instagram and content and stuff, that it's not about in my world anyway. It's not about what you think is like the best thing. It's the masses, man. What do the masses think is cool? And hopefully there's some crossover. Like I love doing the big swings, and it looks like everyone on Instagram likes me doing them as well. So great, let's just go hard on that. There's other things that I enjoy doing, but there's no way they're going to produce good content.
What's the biggest discrepancy between the thing that is hardest that a non-parkour or non-gymnastics person be like, oh, I could do that? Maybe not I could do that, but like, yeah, just doesn't have that. Because I know exactly what you mean. I mean, even some of the lower skill stuff is like, if the gap's just high, I don't care how long it is. Like it makes it more.
Yeah, there's things that I can't even do, like the guys that do triple twists outside. The public can't see the fucking difference between a backflip and one with 3 twists in it. Like, you could post, you know what I mean? And one of them is infinitely harder than the other.
Yeah, you can just like, I guess, like aesthetic max it. If it was purely for the content creation and purely for the marketing, I guess.
The people within parkour understand it and they value it and rate it, but it's not, the people within parkour is not such a big audience, I don't think.
My final question, sort of to wrap this interview up, is what the fuck is your day-to-day life, and like what is your plan? What are you up to? Because even just having a look at how you signed in and labeled yourself on this call, it seems like you're just sort of just fucking around and finding out and making some content, doing some odd jobs along the way. What are you about? What are you trying to do?
I honestly feel a bit of fear when people ask me this question, because I'm like, fuck, what am I going to say? Like, a lot of my time is spent, like, I'm fortunate enough that I make a decent amount of money from the job that I do, the obstacle course thing, and this year's been phenomenal for Instagram work for me. But I'll just do the shit that I like doing while I don't have any work on. So like today, I just had breakfast before this call, and I'll probably like go for a skate, and then I think tomorrow I'll go for a surf with my mate. hit the gym at some point, spend a bit of time outside. Like it's real. I'm living with a just, I guess, your average Australian family at the moment. And when I look at them, I'm like, my God, man, you guys are just absolutely flat out. Like there's very few moments where they're not doing anything. And I feel like there's hours of my day where I'm doing fuck all. And I definitely critique myself all the time for that, because I'm like, come on, man, don't throw away this opportunity. You've got so much fucking free time. You should probably be reading a book or doing something useful. But, you know, the truth is I'll spend a couple hours a day scrolling Instagram and just doing the activities I like doing.
But I think isn't that the goal, to live like a dog?
I was explaining this to my girlfriend, and she was like asking me like a few times, like, so what do you do in your free time? I'm like trying to come up with these things, and I'm just like, honestly, like sometimes I don't do anything. And she was just like, oh yeah, me too. And I was like, oh, thank God for that. You know what I mean? Like, you don't expect me to like fucking be doing something all the time, because I feel like there is that expectation in this world.
Internal guilt at all, like with all
Absolutely.
this, or you're just loving it? Oh,
I feel, yeah, I used to struggle with it more than I do now, but I definitely feel guilt for, like, a lot of my mates have full-time jobs, you know, so I'll only see them when the day's up, so to speak. And it makes you feel a bit like why do I have the opportunity to do this, like to live this easy breezy life? And like there's people out there just grinding away to fucking make enough money to pay their rent. Do you know what I mean?
I actually went to therapy for this specifically. And my therapist was like, as long as you're grateful, it's okay. So like, even if you feel like you don't deserve it, as long as you're like, I'm grateful for it. Because like my fear was like that some aspects of it could be taken away. And she's like, yeah, and it could all be taken away from you. But as long as you're grateful that it happened, then it's you've made the most of it. And you sound like you have the awareness. Like you're looking at other people and you're like, oh, got a pretty good setup here. So like, I think you fucking.
And this is what I always dreamed of as well. I was like, I just want the time. I remember when I was younger, I was like, I just want the time to train parkour and do the things that I want to do. And now I've maybe it's that thing of like you achieve it too early and you're like, fuck do I do now? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I nearly fucking died a couple times last week, I feel. Like, and this doesn't happen often. I'm not saying this for a dramatic effect. I was crossing a road and somebody just went through a red light. And if I crossed it a couple seconds later, the car would have just fucking mashed me. Shit. And then I went for a surf a few days before that with a friend, and I was like the closest to drowning I've been in a while. It was pretty big, and my surf fitness absolutely sucks. And so I was just getting wave after wave on my head, and I'd like pop up and there'd just be another fucking wave right after it. And I'd be like, oh my God. I got to the point where I was like, just be real calm under the water, man. Don't move around, because you're literally going to run out of fucking energy. And so I had those two little things, and I was just like, would I live my life any differently? Probably not, man. I think this is it. Pretty happy.
My question about the surfing one, though, is when you have that moment where you're like, am I dying here? Did you go immediately in after, or did you stay out?
No, I stayed out.
Yeah, it's so funny.
It goes away pretty quick, doesn't it? Like, it's amazing how the human brain is just like, you can have what you feel like is life-changing experiences, and then a week or a month or fucking 10 minutes later, you're just like back to your old tricks, sort of thing. It's crazy.
That's exactly what happened to me when I was surfing in WA. I literally became a religious man. Like, I don't believe in God, but a wave came through and I prayed. And I was like, if you just let me live, I promise I'll go in. Didn't.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, I'm definitely going to hell for that one.
I was surfing at Crescent Head. Like, I remember you mentioned it. I literally was there a month ago, maybe, but the waves were tiny. It wasn't that good. We drove like 14 hours to get there as well.
No, dude. Okay, so Crescent Head, awesome location to get some waves. But if you really want to get your riding time up, it's not the best wave in the world, but fuck, it's a long wave and it breaks probably at least 300 days a year. Scott's Head. So about an hour south of that. It's just like 2 kilometers long. You will be catching 60-second fucking waves. So it's like literally just get a log, get the biggest fucking board you can, ride away for a full minute, walk or paddle back up the point. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you want to bank over an hour of actual surfing time in a week, that is a place where you can actually do it.
Scott's Head.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, guys. He shouted out the break.
Nah, it's all good. People, actually, you know, this is this is pretty bad. So last time I was surfing Scott's Head, one of the locals got angry at me for having a GoPro out there. So that's his fucking fault. And it's not a secret spot. Fuck those people. Oh yeah, blast it out all over YouTube for all I care.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
Speaking of, so obviously people can follow you at Tim Champion if they want to keep up with you on Instagram. Do you have a YouTube channel or anything like that? You have to, right?
No, I constantly think I should probably be doing YouTube, but the time and effort. That's the thing. I've got so much time, so I don't really have an excuse. But maybe just the effort I don't want to put into it.
You get in the way.
What sort of content do you think I should produce on YouTube?
I think so. I don't want to come across as a complete simp. I think you'd be surprised what people will watch. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right.
No, but like, yeah, it's like, man, have you ever caught yourself watching someone's vlog? You're like, am I watching another man just eat lunch right now? Like, not even like eat like ground up beef
you're not
and
wrong,
rice.
actually.
Yeah,
You're not wrong.
just doing random shit. That's true.
Yeah, because that's it. It's like once you've roped me in with all the swingy shit, I'm kind of like, I want to see how this man does everything.
I need the absolute lowest effort way to do it, which would be to have like my own filmer and editor. And
Yeah,
the
do
buy-in
that,
for that's
and then
pretty.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, and it's the world's first entirely POV channel that's not
Oh
porn.
my god, yeah. Maybe you're onto something.
If you're sick of going goblin mode on the same 4 accessory exercises at the end of every single session, head to the notes below and grab our free gymnastics program. It'll change the way you think about accessories forever.